Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to speak onto this issue, which is important to all of us. As your neighbors, Kenya, it concerns us. Your well-being concerns us. First, I want to start by giving my condolences to the families and friends who lost loved ones during this time. It's painful to lose one life. It's painful to lose any life to be lost. So I want to commiserate with them and condole with them and ask that God gives them fortitude to bear this loss. I also want to wish the people who got injured or fell victim during this time to injuries of one kind or the other, a speedy recovery, and that they will be able to resume their normal life. Together with that, I also want to commiserate with people who lost property and livelihood, that God will give them strength and that they will be able to pick themselves up and move on, because that is what we desire of Tanzania, and to see a Tanzania that is peaceful, stable, and prosperous. As your neighbors, that's what we wish for you. You've asked me about Kenyans who live in Tanzania, and the reason why I've started with that is not, it would be selfish for me to just talk about Kenyans and not mention others who were affected. Indeed, we lost a Kenyan teacher, Mr. Ogutu, on the 29th, who died on the 29th, during this disturbances that were there during the time of demonstration. We have not known exactly the circumstances under which he died, but we have sought from the authorities in Tanzania to give us, to help us find answers under what circumstances he died. And we have also not been able to find the body yet. So we have sought the assistance of Tanzanian authorities to help us to trace the body of Ogutu so that his family and loved ones can be able to give him a decent burial and rest back at home in Kenya. So having said that, we do not have any other information of Kenyans who have been affected by these clashes, not as far as we know up to now. We know there were a number who had been incarcerated. There are numbers who were being held by police in different areas, but a good majority of them up to now, as far as we know, have been released and have returned back home to their families. Some of them were not from Kenya, were also living in Tanzania. Some of them are married here, and they have returned back to their families. So we are grateful to the government of Tanzania for the cooperation they have given us and in helping us to release these people who did not have any not committed any offense, and the majority of them, as far as we know, have been released without any charges.
I'm sure you're in touch with Mr. Ogutu's family. What are you telling them from what you're hearing from the authorities here in Tanzania?
Salim, it's heartbreaking for the family. One, to receive the news that you have lost a loved one. It is heartbreaking, as I can imagine. We have reached out to them. We have engaged with them, particularly through our Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nairobi. But also, we know that it becomes even worse when you are not able to get the body so that you can have closure on the matter. So we have sought the help of the government, even though the embassy, together with colleagues of Ogutu, had moved around to check in a number of mortuaries, and they were not able to find the body. And we are hopeful that, with the assistance of government, we will be able to trace the body of Ogutu so that Ogutu can be able to go back, can be repatriated back home for a decent send-off. Yes.
For reasons that personally I don't know, Kenya felt that it was fully involved in what happened in Tanzania. Why do you think that happened, that narrative came across?
Yeah, but where did this narrative come from? The narrative,
well, mostly from the social media.
That Kenya was involved?
Yes.
I don't know, because I read social media as well. And social media is social media, is not government. And social media is independent. These are individuals who write whatever they feel. If you have seen social media in Kenya, you will see that sometimes social media in Kenya will attack government, will attack His Excellency the President. They sometimes will even put out some narratives that are also not true. A lot of social media sometimes have what we call fake news or false false allegation. That is one. But secondly, the laws in Kenya allow people to have a freedom of expression. There are limits, of course, by other laws that this has certain limits and has certain responsibilities. But to a large extent, people are able to, speak and speak their mind, and the law allows them that space. So based on this, you will find many people participated in discussing what was happening in Tanzania. There are people who, were following what is happening in Tanzania, and it's not unique. When we were having our elections about 2-3 years ago, 2022, Tanzanians were following our elections. I came to Tanzania and I found some people were saying, I was supporting President Ruto, the hustler, and others were saying I was supporting Raila Odinga Baba. So this is common, and it's because we are neighbors and we are friends and we are related, we do business together, it is common. So to find that Kenyans were interested in what was happening in Tanzania, as they're interested in what is happening in Uganda, is common because we are related. And it's not just in this. When we have football games, we have banter that we exchange. When we have other activities, we have banter. So that is common. I don't think that should be used to mean that Kenyans are involved in what was happening in Tanzania. That on itself should not be a means of using or gauging, because taking an interest in what your neighbor is doing or having it shown in our media stations or news channels is the normal thing. I mean, when we had Gen Z protests or demonstrations last year, I was watching it in TBC, and I would follow and see that they are covering. In fact, I would have been very disappointed if Tanzania did not think what is happening in Kenya is newsworthy. So this is common, and there is freedom for that to the extent that people are able to express themselves. Please.
Authorities in Tanzania did mention that foreigners were involved in what happened, and people were on social media were pointing fingers to Kenya. How does that make you feel, first as a person, as an individual, but as a country?
Now, it is, I had the authorities, it's true that the authorities mentioned that there were foreigners, being who were involved in this. I have not further to that seen them present, what you would say is the follow-up to that, the sources of information or the evidence or to the extent. And that is work that I believe is well fitted to be done by the Tanzanian authorities. And I believe Tanzanian authorities will be able to do this very competently. Secondly, in cases where we have had issues, even of security, that are of a transnational nature, we have a very good working arrangement with Tanzanian authorities. We, for example, cooperate a lot on counterterrorism, combating transnational crimes like human trafficking, poaching, drug trafficking, and many others. So we would be able to work together in those kind of spaces. On this issue of how do I feel when I see people pointing fingers, it is of course disturbing, and I think it is very misplaced. I've seen some of social media, items, even quite recently, by some people who I also believe may not have enough information. They're just talking for the sake of saying some things which are dangerous to relations between countries. I saw one person mentioning and saying, Kenya would want to destabilize Tanzania because then they can get the tourists. Tourists will not go to an unstable region. So the tourism market is not like it's a contract. If you don't come to Tanzania, you come to Kenya. It doesn't work out like that. It's a person with, I believe, very shallow knowledge of how tourism works, or even how economic factors, and security factors are a consideration to many people. We have worked together with Tanzania in trying to bringing stability to this region of East Africa, not long ago, and even now on a continuous process in Eastern DRC, in other countries that have been disturbed within the region. We've worked together. Why? Because we know that when we have stability across the region, it benefits all of us. For example, Kenya doesn't share a border with DRC, but we are involved. We have been involved as EAC because we know that if we bring stability, then we can also get prosperity for all of us, and that will help us. Our boats will rise with the rising tide for everybody else. And let me just also say on the issues of, you know, and I also heard about, you know, again in the same breath, you know, a particular preacher talking about, you know, trade, and sometimes some of other people talking about, you know, now Tanzania is manufacturing more than Kenya, and so Kenya may not be happy. No, we are happy with each other, because the more you have, more the economy grows, the more we are able to trade together. You know, we are each other's very important trading partners. And when Tanzania also manufactures more, then they also need a bigger market, which would include Kenya. So I just want to bring these thoughts to the minds of people that we need each other, and we grow together, and we go further when we work together. And that's why all of us belong to trading blocks. You know, we are together in EAC, which is a common market area. We are in together, I mean, Tanzania is in SADC, again, for the same reason, you benefit more from a bigger market. Kenya is in COMESA, which stretches all the way to Eswatini, because again, you benefit more from working together. So you can't say a country is doing very well, that now they are doing more manufacturing or they are industrializing, and for that reason, they want to keep to themselves. No, they need a market, because that is what creates prosperity, that is what brings jobs for people. And all of us agree, we need jobs for our young people. So it makes me feel bad when I see some of the people being listened to in social media and speaking to these things are people who lack understanding, they lack the expertise to know, and then maybe some of them doing it from mosques or churches. People listen to them because they believe somebody standing in front of them and speaking, and a religious leader, that they know what they're saying. But sometimes they honestly may know in other things, but in matters of trade and international trade or economies, they have no expertise to know. So sometimes it misleads our people. What I would say is that Kenyans mean well for Tanzanians, both as government and the people. We mean well for Tanzanians. We are happy when our neighbors are able to are stable, they have peace and stability, and they're able to prosper. That's why we are here, you know, many thousands, hundreds of thousands. And that's why we have a lot of Tanzanians also in Kenya doing business as well and being comfortable there. And quite recently, we have seen a lot of huge investments by Tanzanians into Kenya because we are trading partners. And you obviously know that we as Kenyan companies have a lot of investments in Tanzania. So why would we wish instability in Tanzania where we have invested, you know, hundreds or tens of millions of dollars? It's not possible. Yeah.
For a Kenyan who's actually watching us right now, and they are planning to come to Tanzania, whether it's business or pleasure, what do you have to say to them?
Now, I would say it is safe. It is safe to come to Tanzania. Tanzania is a peaceful land. These are challenges that we have seen coming. In Kenya, we have seen them before. They come and we deal with them quickly. We are able to either resolve them or they dissipate one or the other, and life moves on. It doesn't mean that this is the end or beginning of an end of the stability, peace and stability that we know in Tanzania. We wish Tanzanians well, the authorities and the people, to work out in resolving these issues that are there and to be able to get back to the very good path of development. So I would encourage them to come. I personally have many friends who through me have booked hotels and have asked me to recommend places they can come for holiday. And I have recommended both in Zanzibar and in mainland. And I'm encouraging them to come. That this should not mean, you know, you don't shun your neighbor because they're going through a challenge. Undugu ni kufaana. Kwa hivyo you don't shun your neighbor when they're going through a challenge. You come in and you support them. And Tanzanians are good people. They are peaceful people by nature. They are happy people. They are very hospitable people by nature. And I think this is something that you find very uniquely within East Africa. Yes. And Kenyans are hospitable as well. Absolutely. So I would encourage you as well to, you know, to do an exchange and visit some of our tourist resorts. Mombasa, Watamu, Malindi, and other places, and Masai Mara, yes. So mine is just to say, in brief, that we need each other, and I know that this is a rough patch, but in the life of statehood, we get sometimes this kind of challenges. It is part of growth. It is part of strengthening the processes of a country, and I wish Tanzania well as they do this, and not just myself. I do so on behalf of the Kenya government and the Kenyan community living in Tanzania, because we are one. We are one East African family.